What do you say when your husband reads every sweet secret message you sent your lover while he lay asleep beside you? How do you spin the story after he calmly packs your bags, moves his things into the master bedroom alone, and later meets you in public with a stack of legal documents instead of a fight? Can a woman who said it was only texting survive what happens when the law believes him, not her? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Thessaly Prynn, and I still think none of this would have happened if my husband had just made me feel wanted. People say I ruined my own marriage. I say I only did what any woman would do when she is tired of being ignored in her own bed. That night, the night I thought he was asleep next to me, I lay on my side with my back to him. His breathing was slow and heavy. The room was dark, only a thin blue line from the street outside under the curtain. The mattress dipped a little where he lay. His warmth was there, but it felt like nothing, like lying next to a big pillow. My phone was in my hand under the blanket. The light was low. I knew how to tilt it so the screen did not shine on his face. I had learned that over the last months, the same way you learn to walk quietly in the dark. My heart was fast, but in a nice way, not fear, more like a secret party inside my chest. I was chatting with Marco. I think it is important to say that. Marco was the first person in a long time who made me feel seen. We met at the gym near my clinic. I work at the front desk of a small medical center. I hear people complain all day. I hand them forms and smile and try to act like I care. When I started going to the gym after work, it felt like air after a long time underwater. Marco asked how my day had been. I told him I felt invisible. He said a woman like me could never be invisible. He said I must be lying. I told him my husband never touched me first anymore. He replied that if I were his, he would not be able to keep his hands off me. Things like that. They were only words, just texts, but they woke up something that had been sleeping. So I lay there in bed, my husband 2 hands away, and I typed to Marco about my day. He asked where I was. I said I was in my cold bed. He wrote that my husband did not deserve me. I told him my husband was boring, that he talked more about school tests than about me. I said my husband was safe but soft, like a couch you sit on when you are tired, not a man you want to kiss. I know how that sounds. But you have to understand, Daniel used to be different. When we first married, he brought me small things, coffee with a note, favorite candy, silly songs in the kitchen. Then the kids came, and the bills, and his job at the high school got harder. He came home tired and full of other people's problems. He said he had to stay late to grade tests. I had to stay late to not scream. So when Marco sent a smiling photo and said he was thinking of me, I smiled back into my pillow. I wrote that my husband would never have the courage to leave me, even if I did something crazy. I said he was scared to be alone, that he needed me more than I needed him. I even wrote that if he ever saw our chats, he would just cry and forgive me. I felt powerful saying it. Behind me, I heard Daniel shift. The mattress moved. For a second, I held my breath. Then he settled again. I told myself he was asleep. Why would I think anything else? He always fell asleep fast. He never got up to check my phone, not really. He had asked questions a few times, sure. He had asked why I was on my phone so late. I told him it was just group chat from work. He had asked why I laughed so much at the screen. I told him he should be happy I was in a good mood. He never pushed after that. He just got quiet, so I learned how much I could get away with. In the morning, the alarm went off on his phone at 6. A simple sound, not loud, just enough to break the night. He turned it off, sat on the edge of the bed, rubbed his face. I watched him through half-open eyes. He looked tired. There was a tiny red mark on his cheek from the pillow. He checked his phone like he always did. Notifications, school emails, calendar. For one moment, I saw a strange line on the screen as he held it in his hand. It was a reminder, I think. I only saw a piece of it, something like meeting, personal. I did not care then. I just assumed it was some teacher thing, some boring talk about grades. He asked why I had been on my phone so late again. I said I was chatting with Naomi and Lena about work drama. He asked if everything was okay between us. I said he was being dramatic, that nothing was wrong except his attitude. He looked at me for a long time, almost like he wanted to say something else. Then he said he did not want to fight in front of the kids and stood up. In the kitchen, while I made toast and the kids watched cartoons, I told myself I was right. Daniel moved around quiet and stiff, pouring coffee, packing his lunch. He asked if I would be home for dinner. I told him I had a staff meeting and might have to stay late. I said he needed to handle bedtime more often, that I was tired of doing everything. He just nodded. I did not mention that Marco had already asked if I wanted to swing by the gym after work, that he said he could give me a private stretching session. In my head, that did not count as cheating. It was just attention, just touch, just a man reminding me I was still interesting. After Daniel left with his laptop bag, I grabbed my phone and went straight to our family group chat. I wrote that Daniel had been doing the jealous husband thing again. Naomi replied that I should not let him control my phone. She said all men get scared when their woman starts to glow up. My mother sent a voice message saying I deserved to have friends and fun, that Daniel should be careful or he would lose me. I smiled at the screen, feeling backed up, feeling right. When I put the dishes in the sink, I noticed a folder on the counter I did not remember seeing there before. It was simple, just a plain folder with the word household written on a sticky note. I opened it and saw some bills, bank letters, printouts of budgets, boring things. I closed it and pushed it aside. Daniel always stressed about money. It was not my problem if he wanted to go over numbers again and again. All morning at the clinic, I told myself a story. In my story, I was a young, fun wife stuck with a man who had turned into a controlling father. When Lena asked why I looked tired, I told her Daniel had flipped out because I was on my phone at night. She laughed and said some men cannot stand watching their wives have a life. I told her he had asked if we were okay. She said that was emotional blackmail. I liked that word. It made me feel like the victim, not the one doing something wrong. By the time I went home that afternoon, I had convinced myself the problem was not the chats, not Marco, not me. The problem was Daniel and his fear. I believed he would never really do anything. He would sigh, he would sulk, but he would stay. He needed our family too much. He needed me. That night, when I slid into bed beside him again and saw him lying on his back, eyes closed, phone on the nightstand, I did not feel guilty. I only felt annoyed that he did not reach for me. I turned away, pulled the blanket up over my shoulders, and reached for my phone under the pillow. I thought he was asleep next to me when I started to type. When I look back, people say the signs were clear. They say I was already cheating long before that night in bed. I do not call it cheating. To me, it was like breathing fresh air after years in a small, closed room. It started simple at the clinic. I sat at the reception desk, my grey uniform tight around my waist, my smile fake and stuck on my face. Patients complained about waiting times, about bills, about pain that I could not fix. The phone rang all day. I passed messages to doctors who barely looked at me. I typed, I nodded, I said the same lines again and again. One evening, I was leaving late, and the light outside was that soft orange that makes everything look better. I felt heavy and tired. I passed the gym on the corner, the one with the glass front and loud music. I stood there for a moment, looking at people who still had energy, who still cared about their bodies. Inside, Marco was at the front, talking to a group. He caught my eye through the glass and waved like we were already friends. It felt nice, so I went in. He asked if I worked nearby. I said I worked at the clinic. He asked if I was married. I said yes, like it was no big deal. He asked if my husband went to the gym. I laughed and said no. He just sat with his lesson plans and his boring math. Marco smiled and said I deserved better. I told him it was fine, that Daniel was safe. Marco said I did not look like a woman who wanted only safe. After that, I signed up. At first, it was just workouts, but he kept talking to me. He asked about my kids, my day. He remembered small things. He would message to ask if I got home okay. Daniel never did that. Daniel assumed I would always come home, always be there, always do the right thing. I told myself there was nothing wrong with replying. When he sent a selfie at the gym, I sent one in my clinic uniform. When he said my smile made his day, I pretended to roll my eyes, but I read the message again later in the bathroom, alone. One night, when I got home late from the gym, Daniel asked how training was. I said it was good. He asked if I had a trainer now. I told him I was just doing classes. I did not mention Marco's hands on my shoulders, his voice in my ear when he corrected my posture. Why would I? It was harmless. I needed something for myself. In bed that night, Daniel turned to me and said we did not talk anymore. I told him we were talking right then. He said it felt like I was somewhere else all the time. I said he was imagining things, that he was stressed from work. He asked if I was happy. I said I was tired and did not want to have this conversation. He went quiet and turned away. At work the next day, I told Lena that Daniel had interrogated me. Lena laughed and said he sounded insecure. I liked that word too, insecure. It turned his worry into weakness and made my lies look like strength. The more I talked to Marco, the less I wanted to talk to Daniel. In my head, I built a story where Daniel was always the problem. He was too serious, too quiet, too focused on bills. When he asked what time I would be home, I heard control. When he asked who I was texting, I heard accusation. When Marco asked those same things, I heard care. On weekends, I started going to the gym in the morning to clear my head. Daniel stayed home with the kids, made pancakes, cleaned up. Sometimes I came back late and said the class ran long. He looked like he wanted to ask more, but did not. That was his mistake, I told myself. If he wanted the truth, he should have the courage to demand it. The first time he saw Marco, I remember clear. It was in the gym parking lot. I had stayed in Marco's car too long, laughing, talking, checking a video on his phone. When I stepped out, I saw Daniel's car 2 spaces away. He was sitting there, looking at us. My stomach flipped, but I forced a bright smile. He asked what I was doing. I said Marco was just showing me some exercises on his phone. He asked why I had not come out sooner. I said he was being dramatic, that we were just talking. He said it looked like more than talking. I laughed and said he was jealous of a trainer. I told him that if he took care of himself, he would not feel so threatened. His face changed at that, like I had slapped him, but he did not yell. He just shut down, like a light going out. That night, I told Naomi that Daniel had been watching me at the gym. She said that was creepy. She said some men think they own you. I agreed. I liked having the words creepy and jealous on my side. I did not say that I had stayed in Marco's car for 20 minutes while my kids waited at home. The big turning point, at least for the public story, was the brunch. Lena and I planned a girls' brunch at a trendy cafe near the clinic. White walls, hanging plants, tiny plates with expensive food. Naomi came too, and some of Lena's friends. I wore a tight dress, did my hair, painted my lips. I wanted to look like a woman who had options. From the moment I sat down, I performed. I told them Daniel had gone crazy because I was on my phone at night. I said he had asked if I was cheating just because I talked to a male friend. They gasped and shook their heads. Naomi said men are scared when women talk to anyone but them. Lena said he sounded controlling. I did not mention Marco's late-night messages about how he imagined me in bed next to my boring husband. I did not mention that I answered those messages with one hand under the blanket, my heart racing. We ordered drinks. Someone started filming short clips for their stories. I loved attention, so I gave it. I said that if Daniel kept acting like my father, I might have to accidentally upgrade. Everyone laughed. I lifted my glass. Someone shouted that I could do better. The camera caught my grin as I nodded. At the time, it felt like nothing. Just a joke, just brunch. But later it became proof, another piece of the puzzle he built against me. Because what I did not see, not until later, was that Daniel had come to pick me up early. We had agreed he would swing by after his meeting near the cafe. He walked in while we were still loud at the big table. He stood by the door for a moment. I did not notice him. I was too busy telling my story. One of Lena's friends filmed me at the exact moment I made the upgrade joke. In the clip, when you watch it closely, you can see him at a small table in the background, sitting alone with a coffee, face turned down. No one tagged him. No one noticed. He sat there and listened as I laughed about leaving him, like he was nothing. Later, Naomi posted the clip with a caption about wives who outgrow little boys. It got likes, laughing faces, heart emojis. Someone wrote that my husband should be scared. I liked that comment. At home that night, Daniel did not say anything about the cafe. He helped Ava with her homework, read Liam a story. His face was calm, too calm. When he went to the guest room after the kids were in bed, he took his laptop with him. I walked past the half-open door and saw a spreadsheet on the screen, rows and rows of dates and notes. I rolled my eyes and thought he was doing tests or grades. He closed the laptop a little when he saw me and said he was working. I did not ask. I did not care. I thought I was still in control. I thought all he had was hurt feelings and a few jealous looks. I did not understand yet that he was already turning my jokes and my chats into something solid, something with weight, something that could be held up in front of other people while I stood there with nothing but my stories. After the brunch, things did not get better, they got quieter. That was worse in a way. Daniel stopped asking so many questions. At first, I thought maybe he had finally decided to trust me. He did not bring up the gym again. He did not mention Marco. He did not say anything about the clip Naomi posted, even though I knew he must have seen it. People send those things around, family watches. He just shifted. He still took the kids to school in the mornings. He still came home with his laptop bag and put it by the door. But instead of sitting with me on the couch, he went to the guest room more often. He said he had extra work. I told myself he was hiding from me because he could not handle strong women. I told myself he should be the one trying to fix things, not me. At the clinic, Marco's messages filled all the space Daniel used to have. When I woke up, before I even got out of bed, I checked my phone. Marco asked if I slept well. I told him I slept with a log. He asked if I meant my husband. I sent a laughing emoji and said he was not wrong. It was just a joke. People joke about their partners all the time. Between patients, I leaned back from the reception desk and scrolled. Marco sent pictures from the gym, sweaty, smiling. He said he could not wait to see me after my shift. I told him my husband was being moody and jealous. He replied that jealousy meant Daniel knew he was losing me. I liked how that sounded, like I was something someone could lose. Lena saw me smiling at my phone and asked if it was Gym Guy again. I told her yes, and that he actually listened to me. She asked if it was serious. I said it was just emotional, that I would never do anything physical. She rolled her eyes and said emotional was still cheating, but in a soft voice, not really judging. Then she added that Daniel probably deserved it for acting so controlling. I held on to that phrase, emotional but not cheating. It became my shield. If it was only words and feelings, then I had not really crossed a line. I told myself that a lot. One rainy evening, Daniel texted to ask what time I would be home. I wrote back that I had to stay late to help close the clinic. That was not true. We closed at 5, like always, but Marco was working a late shift at the gym, and I wanted to stop by. He met me by the door. The glass was fogged, the music softer than usual. He said I looked tired. I said my husband had been sulking all week. He shook his head and said Daniel did not know what he had. We walked to his car in the parking lot to talk in peace, as I told myself. We sat there for a long time, engine off, rain ticking on the roof. He asked if Daniel touched me. I said not really. He asked if I felt alone. I said all the time. He told me I deserved to feel alive, not like a houseplant someone watered once a week. I laughed and said he had a way with words. When Marco reached over and brushed hair from my face, my heart jumped. I did not pull away. I leaned into the feeling of being wanted. I focused on the heat of his hand, the way he looked at me, not at his phone, not at a pile of papers. I told myself that as long as I did not cross a certain line, I was still a good wife who just needed comfort. When I finally climbed out of his car, it was dark. As I walked around the back of the gym toward the street, I had a strange feeling, like someone was watching. I turned and saw a car that looked like Daniel's at the far end of the lot. My heart froze for a second, then I told myself it was not his. A lot of cars looked the same in the dark. I walked faster and did not look again. At home, Daniel was sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop, a mug of tea, and a stack of papers. Ava was reading beside him. Liam was drawing. The room smelled like pasta. He had cooked, cleaned up, and put the kids in pajamas already. He said he had been worried when I was late. I told him traffic was bad, and a patient had come in last minute. He asked if I had gone to the gym. I shrugged and said I had stopped for a quick session. He looked at me for a long time, then said he hoped I was being honest because the kids needed stability. I replied that he was making a big drama out of nothing. I said he was trying to control my every move. He did not argue. He just nodded and said we would talk later when the kids were asleep. I hated the word later. It felt like a test I had not studied for. After we put Liam to bed and kissed Ava goodnight, Daniel asked me to sit at the kitchen table. He sat across from me, his laptop closed. He looked calm, too calm. He said he felt like I was not his partner anymore. He said he felt like a roommate who paid the bills and watched the kids while I lived a separate life. I rolled my eyes and told him all husbands felt that way sometimes. He asked if I was involved with Marco. I laughed and said Marco was just my trainer and friend. He said he had seen me in his car in the parking lot. My stomach dropped, but I kept my face smooth. I told him he was seeing things, that it must have been someone else. He said he knew my coat and my walk. I said that even if it was me, so what? We were just talking. I asked if it was a crime now to have a conversation. He suggested we could go to counseling. He said maybe a neutral person could help us talk. I said I did not want strangers in our business. I told him the only reason things were bad was because he kept accusing me. I said his jealousy was the real problem, not my chats. When I said that, something in his eyes hardened. He did not raise his voice. He did not hit the table. He simply said he understood and that he would not bring it up again. I should have felt afraid when he said that. Instead, I felt relieved. I told myself I had won. He would drop it. I could keep my life the way I wanted. Later that week, I walked past the guest room and saw him at the small table again. The spreadsheet on his screen was different now. The columns had titles. I caught words like date, time, event. There were rows filled in already. I asked what he was working on. He said it was just a system to keep track of school tasks and home things. I said he was turning into a robot. He gave a small smile and said structure helped him think. His phone buzzed with a soft tone on the table. A reminder popped up for a second. Paper drop. He tapped it away before I could read more. In the park that weekend, I sat on a bench scrolling while the kids played. Ava came over and leaned against me. She asked why Daddy slept in the other room sometimes now. I told her he snored and that I needed rest. She looked at me in that serious way she had and said, Daddy seemed sad. I said he was just stressed from work. She asked if I was mad at him. I said I was only disappointed. When Ava ran to Daniel and repeated some of that, I saw him close his eyes for a moment like it hurt. He did not correct her. He just lifted Liam onto the swing and pushed gently, watching the sky. That night, I lay in bed again, phone under the blanket, Marco's messages bright in the dark. Behind me, Daniel's breathing was slow and even. I told myself he was asleep, that he had given up, that he would never really do anything. What I did not see was his other phone, face down in the guest room drawer, recording the soft vibration of my late-night notifications and the exact times I slipped out of bed and came back. The night it all broke open did not feel special when it started. It felt like every other night I had told myself I deserved. Daniel went to bed early, like usual. He brushed his teeth, set his alarm, put his phone on the nightstand. He asked if I was coming. I said I had to finish a few messages. He just nodded and walked to the bedroom. That nod annoyed me. It felt like judgment without words. When I finally went in, the room was dark, the only light a thin line under the curtain again. He was already lying on his side, facing away from me. His breathing was slow and deep. The glow from his alarm clock showed his shoulders rising and falling. I told myself he was asleep. Why would I think he was not? I slipped under the blanket and turned my back to him. My phone was already in my hand. Marco had sent a message asking if the log was snoring yet. I smiled into the pillow and wrote that yes, my husband had passed out in 2 minutes, like always. Marco asked what I was wearing. I rolled my eyes even as my heart beat faster and told him it did not matter, that my husband would not notice either way. Marco sent laughing emojis and said he wished he could trade places and actually appreciate me. The messages came fast after that. He asked if Daniel ever made me feel wanted. I said not for a long time. I said Daniel treated me like a coworker, not a wife. I wrote that the only time he touched me now was when he needed something done. I told myself I was just venting. Then I went further. I typed that Daniel would never have the courage to leave me even if he knew everything. I said he was too soft, too scared of being alone. I said he would just cry and forgive me, like always. I even joked that he should pay me for staying, like I was doing him a favor. Behind me, Daniel shifted a little. The mattress dipped, then stilled. I froze for 1 second, phone tight in my hand, then told myself it was just a dream movement. His breathing did not change. He did not speak. I went back to the screen. What I did not see was his hand on the other side of the bed, under his pillow, holding his own phone. Our devices were on the same account. Our messages synced in quiet ways I had forgotten. While I typed to Marco, little grey lines appeared on Daniel's screen in real time. While I laughed in my head, he read every word. Much later, when I pretended to sleep, he lay there awake. I know now because I remember the way his breathing changed, the way it felt too careful. I felt him get up once in the night. I thought he was going to the bathroom. I heard the faint click of the guest room door and the very soft sound of the printer spitting out a page. I rolled over and told myself I was imagining things. In the morning, the alarm on his phone rang at 6. He turned it off and sat up slowly, like he was older than he was. I watched through half-closed eyes again. He checked his phone, but this time he did not scroll long. He put it down with care, almost like it might break. He said good morning. I muttered something and turned away. He asked if I had slept well. I said I would have slept better if he did not fuss over my phone every night. He went quiet for a moment, then said we needed to talk after the kids went to school. I told him I had a busy day and we could talk some other time. He did not argue. He just stood up and went to the wardrobe. At first, I did not pay attention. I heard hangers slide, drawers open. I thought he was just getting dressed. Then I heard the firm zip of the big suitcase we usually used for holidays. That sound made my eyes open. He had pulled the suitcase out into the hallway and opened it. He was folding my clothes. Not his, mine. Neatly, carefully, one stack after another. jeans, tops, underwear. He did not throw them, did not tear anything. His movements were slow and steady, like he was packing for a trip. I sat up fast and demanded to know what he was doing. He said, very calmly, that I should stay at my mother's for a while. I asked if he was kicking me out. He said he thought space would be good and that the children needed stability at home. His calm made me see red. I jumped out of bed and pulled clothes from his hands. I told him he had no right to pack my things. I said he was acting insane. I accused him of trying to control me, of punishing me just because I had friends. I told him he was making a scene over just messages. He looked at me and asked if I really wanted to call them just messages. I asked what else they were supposed to be. He asked if I would be fine reading them out loud to the kids someday. That made my face burn. I told him he was sick for even saying that. I stormed into the kitchen and grabbed my phone. I called my mother and told her Daniel had lost it. I said he had gone through my private chats and was throwing me out of my own home. Judith's voice came through sharp and angry. She said to put him on the phone. I said he refused to talk. She told me to pack my things and come to her, that no man had the right to police my messages. Naomi was already messaging, asking what was happening. I sent her a picture of the half-packed suitcase in the hallway. I wrote that Daniel was throwing me out because I had dared to have a life. She replied that she was coming over right away. By the time the kids were dressed and sitting at the table, the whole apartment felt like a storm cloud. Ava watched us with wide eyes. Liam sucked on his spoon. Daniel tried to keep his voice soft for them. He said Mommy might stay with Grandma for a bit, that everything would be okay. I cut in and said that Daddy was having a meltdown and that adults sometimes needed time. It sounded better that way. Then Judith knocked. She came in hot, coat still on, eyes scanning the suitcase. She asked Daniel what he thought he was doing. He said he did not want to argue in front of the children. She said he had already started by attacking me. He repeated that he did not want to argue. His jaw was tight, but his tone stayed low. Naomi arrived with her phone in her hand, camera already open. She whispered that we needed to document this in case he twisted the story. She started filming little clips of me crying near the suitcase, of Daniel standing there with his arms folded. She asked me to tell the camera what had happened. I said my husband had gone through my phone and was kicking me out like trash. I did not mention Marco's name. I did not mention the things I had said in those chats. At one point, Daniel went to the guest room. I followed, yelling that he could not just hide. He opened the small desk drawer with a key I had never seen before. Inside, I noticed a single USB stick with today's date written on a tiny label. There was also a short stack of papers, face down next to his laptop, and a sticky note that said, "Bring forms." He closed the drawer before I could touch anything. I asked what those were. He said they were his notes. I told him he was scaring me. He said he was only organizing things. He added that he would not discuss the chats anymore, that he had seen enough. He walked past me and went back to the kids, who were sitting by the door with their school bags. He knelt down to their height and said he loved them very much. He told Ava he would pick her up from school like normal. He told Liam Daddy would be here when he came home. I cut in and said maybe they would come with me. Daniel looked at me then, really looked, and asked if I wanted to move them in the middle of the week for no reason. Judith said the reason was that I was their mother. Daniel said the reason was not something the children had caused. He kept his voice steady. In the end, I grabbed my handbag and some clothes while the kids went to school with him. Naomi drove me to her apartment with my suitcase in the trunk. As we left, I glanced back and saw Daniel in the doorway, phone in his hand, watching the car pull away. On his screen, I saw for just a second a calendar alert. Downtown, 10:40 a.m. The same as the one I had ignored before. I told myself it was a school meeting. I told myself he was just being dramatic. I did not understand that while I ran to my family to tell my side, he was already moving my words and my nights into some quiet system I could not see yet. Liam's 5th birthday was the first time I saw people look at me like I was the problem. We had planned that dinner weeks before the suitcase fight. Back then, the idea was simple. Small family meal at the restaurant, near our place, cake, photos, everyone smiling. After I moved to Naomi's apartment with my suitcase, I assumed we would cancel. But Daniel sent a calm message saying we should still do it for the kids. I almost laughed at his nerve. Naomi said we should go and show we are fine. Judith agreed. She said we could not let him control family events too. So I dressed up more than usual. Nice dress, hair done, bright lipstick. If he wanted to make me the bad wife, I would at least look good doing it. When we walked into the restaurant, the noise hit me first. Clinking plates, kids shouting, birthday music from a speaker in the corner. Liam saw Daniel at the table near the window and ran to him. Daniel stood up and lifted him, smiled in a way that looked real. Ava hugged him too, quiet but tight. I stayed back a second with Naomi and my mother. I wanted people to see that everything was normal, but also that I was the one walking in, the one with support at my side. Daniel's parents were already there, sitting a little stiff. Carla sat next to Elaine, talking low. Harold had a small stack of papers, in a folder on his lap, which he slid under his chair when we arrived. Daniel pulled out a chair for Liam, helped Ava sit, then moved to the far end of the table. He said hello to my mother and Naomi. They gave short replies. Judith did not smile. I sat where I wanted, close to the middle, where everyone could hear me. The waiter came, took drink orders. Daniel asked if the kids could have juice. I said they could have soda this once. He looked like he wanted to argue, then just nodded. That annoyed me more than if he had pushed back. I started talking as soon as menus were down. I said I was staying with Naomi for now because Daniel had overreacted. Judith asked loudly if he had gotten help yet for his control issues. A few heads at other tables turned. I did not mind. Elaine said in a soft voice that we should not discuss private things here. Naomi said it became public when Daniel packed my suitcase and then refused to explain himself. I joined in. I told them he had gone through months of my messages and made a big scene over nothing. Daniel looked straight at me then, calm as ever, and asked if I really thought it was nothing. I said they were just chats with a friend, that everyone texted people these days. I said he was acting like I had run away with someone when I had only wanted someone to listen. Naomi said men think women belong to them. Judith said if he was so fragile, maybe he should have thought about that before reading my private chats in the middle of the night. She added that snooping always says more about the snooper than the person being watched. Daniel did not raise his voice. He reminded everyone that we had children at the table. He asked if we could keep it down for their sake. I said he was trying to silence me, like always. I told the table he wanted to control not just my phone, but my mouth now. That got a chuckle from Naomi. Carla looked at me, steady, and asked if the friend I chatted with knew I was married with 2 kids. Her tone was not loud, but it cut. I said everyone knew I was married, and if Daniel had been better at his job as a husband, I would not have needed someone to talk to. I said maybe the real question was why a grown man could not handle a few texts. Ava sat between us, staring at her plate. Liam was tapping his spoon on the table, humming to himself. He did not really get it, but Ava did. Children know more than we think. She asked Daniel if he was mad at me. He told her he was sad, not mad. I did not like that answer. Sad made him look gentle. I needed him to look harsh. So I made another joke. I told the table that Daniel had packed my suitcase like he owned me, like I was a piece of furniture he could move around. I said maybe next time he could label me with a sticky note too. I made a little show of folding an invisible shirt. Some cousins who had come for the birthday laughed. Naomi lifted her phone again. I knew she captured that line. Harold cleared his throat. He told Judith and me that maybe this was not the right time. Judith said a birthday was the perfect time to show what kind of father a man was. She pointed at Daniel and said a real man fights for his wife, not throws her out over messages. She made it sound like he had put me on the street with no warning. Elaine finally spoke up. She said in a firm voice that her son had always worked hard for his family. She said he had taken care of the kids while I went out and cleared my head. She did not call it cheating, but the word hung there. I felt heat rise in my chest. I told her she did not know the full story. I said Daniel had been distant for years, that I had practically begged him for attention. I spoke loud enough for the tables near us to hear. I wanted people to look at him and see an uncaring husband, a cold man who had driven his wife away. Daniel's fingers were on his fork, but he was not eating. I noticed his phone on the table beside his water glass, screen dark. A tiny notification light flashed once, then stopped. His other hand moved to his jacket pocket for a second, checking something small. A keyring caught the light. I saw a new silver key I did not recognize, and a tiny plastic tag with some number written on it. Storage, I thought for a second, then brushed it off. When the cake came out, everyone sang. For a moment, the tension fell back. Liam smiled, Ava clapped, the candle flames shook in the air from all the voices. I stood behind them, my hands on their shoulders. Daniel stood opposite, camera in hand, taking pictures and quiet little videos. He aimed the lens at the kids, but sometimes it passed over me, Naomi, my mother, the whole table. I did not think about it then. Parents take pictures. That is normal. After the cake, when plates were half empty and the sugar rush had started, Liam asked an innocent question. He turned to me and asked if I was coming home with them. The whole table froze. I forced a smile and said I was staying with Aunt Naomi for a little while because adults needed space. He frowned and asked why Daddy did not need space too. Daniel answered that he would be at home with their beds and toys, that they could see me soon. The way he said it, calm and clear, made me uneasy. When we left the restaurant, the sky was already dark. Cars moved slow on the wet street. Naomi ordered a ride on her phone, rolling her eyes when I asked how long it would take. Daniel asked if he could talk to me alone for a moment. Judith tried to interrupt. He said it would only be a minute. We stood a few steps away from the door, under the yellow light. I crossed my arms. He said he did not want more scenes. He said what had happened with Marco, with the chats, with my lies, had changed things in ways that could not be undone. I said again that it was only messages. He looked tired, older, and said it was more than that, and that we both knew it. I told him he was not throwing my whole life away over some texts. I said he could not just punish me forever. He nodded slowly and said he understood I felt that way. Then he said he would not argue anymore, that we would handle everything properly from now on, and not in front of children or over group chats. The way he used that word, properly, made something cold move through me. I asked what he meant. He just said that I would find out soon enough, and that whatever happened next would follow the rules, not moods. Naomi's ride pulled up then, headlights shining across us. She called my name. I turned away from Daniel and got in the car, still sure he was bluffing, still sure I could talk my way out of whatever he thought he was planning. The email said we should meet in the lobby of an office tower downtown to talk things through. Daniel wrote that he wanted a neutral place, no kids, no parents, no Naomi. I took that as a good sign. I told myself he was finally ready to admit he had gone too far. I dressed carefully, not too formal, not too casual. I wanted to look like a reasonable wife who had been hurt but was ready to forgive. On the way there, I planned what I would say. I would tell him he had scared me by packing my suitcase. I would say he needed to prove he trusted me again. I even thought maybe we could go for coffee after. The lobby was busy and bright, all glass and marble. People walked past with badges and briefcases. Daniel was sitting on a bench near the security desk, a simple folder on his lap. He stood when he saw me and said, "Thank you for coming." His face was calm. Too calm. I started first. I told him he had humiliated me in front of my family and online. I said he could not punish me forever for just messages. I said we needed to put this behind us. He looked at me for a long second, then nodded toward a man standing nearby. The man stepped forward, asked my name, and repeated it out loud like a question. I said yes, that was me. He said he had documents for me and placed an envelope in my hand before I could refuse. My fingers shook as I opened it. The words petition for divorce and temporary custody were right there on the first page, with my full name and his.